Thanks, everyone. Great to be here. I think we're going to have a special panel today. It's not going to be about an exciting new company or a great new technology. It's even not going to be about this great new financial phenomena. It's going to be about a relatively small army unit called 8200. Not just a small unit working out of the Middle East. And you may think, why should we care? I think you should, because this specific unit actually already is having a high impact on innovation worldwide. And smart international companies are trying to learn from what's going on there to learn how to improve innovation and also be able to adapt for new technologies in a fast way. So again, thank you for joining. As I said, I'm Kobi, managing partner and founder with Glilot Capital. We're investing in relatively young Israeli-related companies, cyber, and other B2B SaaS spaces. And I've served in the unit for 6 years. And actually, out of this panel, I'm the lowest level officer in the panel. So it is what it is. And I'm going to start. So really have the honor. I'm going to present these guys in a second. But I want to start giving you a little bit of overview of the unit. I'm not going to take it too long, but just to make sure that you understand the basics of it so we can have a discussion that makes sense. So you have to understand, in Israel, of course, we have security issues, which means that this is why we have compulsory service. Every boy and girl at the age of 18 need to join the army. The second thing that you need to know is that in Israel, intelligence is very important. We just don't have enough soldiers on a day-to-day duty to be able to protect the country if, God forbid, there is an attack. So we need to have a very, very strong intelligence forces. What one of the results is that intelligence have the ability to pick first boys and girls joining the army. So they have the ability to pick first. And the main unit out of the intelligence corps is 8200. So this ability to pick the brightest boys and girls is super important. And then the last thing you need to know about the unit, that it's, at least these days, it's all about cybersecurity, big data, and AI. So lots of this very heavy, deep tech stuff. And this is where the interesting part comes, right? Because you have this organization that is based on very, very young people, mostly 18, have zero experience. Most of them have no academic background, and still they have to be masters in cyber and data and so forth. And this is why the unit has around 30 in-house training program to be able to take all those young kids and get stuff out of them. And I think what's even more interesting is not really the technical stuff that people get taught there. It's more the cultural stuff. So there is a very unique cultural within the unit that I think we could all learn from. So that's, again, a little bit about the unit. And just last slide here, I'm not going to bore you with too many details, but just for you to get an idea of the impact that the unit has. So just some numbers. Israeli population is around 0.1% of world population. So, very low number. The unit itself has only a few thousand people. So it's not a big organization by any means. But still, there are more than 1,000 startups that have been started by unit entrepreneurs. If you look specifically at cybersecurity, 2 out of the leading 10 companies in the world in cybersecurity have been started by alumni of the unit, both Palo Alto and Checkpoint. If you look at unicorns in cyber, the number is even higher, about 30%. And again, 30% of a country that's a fraction of a percent of world population, and an organization that's only thousands of people. And again, there's more stat. When we were doing this slide, we started arguing, what more data to put here, because each one of those data points is staggering in my mind. Around 6% of world total unicorns started by veterans of the unit. So what's going on there that allows all this flow of innovation? And maybe last point on this slide, we are starting to see big American corporations, not just startups, not just innovation hubs, but big American corporations recruiting executives coming from the unit in order to improve the way that they do innovation. And that's, I think, a good segue to present the people here, starting with Yaron. Yaron over there. Yaron is the, you know what, let me read this part so that I'm sure that I'm presenting everyone in a good way. So Yaron is the Chief Digital Officer with Standard Industries, veteran colonel with 8200. He served in the IDF for 25 years, most of them in 8200. In his most recent role, Yaron was the deputy commander of the unit. I think Yaron is a good example of an 8200 officer that became an executive in an American company. Then also have here Shai Morag, co-founder and CEO of Ermetic. It's a cloud security company. Before Ermetic, Shai founded and exited 2 successful companies acquired by Palo Alto Networks and by Mellanox. He served 10 years at the unit, where he held management and product development roles and won several national awards. Ariel Parnes, co-founder and CEO at Mitiga. That's a cloud incident response company. Ariel served as a colonel at the unit, where he served over 20 years in a range of roles, from intelligence to information technology, offensive and defensive cyber operation, and he was the founder of the cyber warfare unit of the IDF. And next to me, Eyal Fisher, co-founder and CPO of a new stealth mode company. I'm not going to say anything about the company. If you want to say something, it's on you. Eyal is also a veteran colonel of the unit, served there for more than 20 years, deep experience in R&D, cyber. In his most recent role, he served as the head of cyber operation at the unit. So again, thank you, everyone, for being here. We're going to start with a more personal question. You know, when I joined the unit, it was very secretive. No one would imagine talking with a big crowd like that. And only after I joined, I learned that my sister is serving in the same unit. So I wanted to ask, yeah, and by the way, I have to apologize that we have no women on the panel. The unit actually do have a lot of women. We're just failed in getting a female partner to be with us today, hopefully next time. So I wanted to ask, how did you first heard about the unit, and what was your first impression? Maybe starting with you, Shai.
Thank you. So I share the same, I would say the same thing as you mentioned, that probably 25, 30 years ago, even the number was something that we didn't really know. It was not public. There was some code names, again, that you interviewed for as part of your draft to the army. We knew that these are elite unit or something, or elite code names for training that we wanted to be part of. But even the number was something that we didn't know, not talking, of course, about what actually the unit is doing, which is something that, of course, becomes today, the number is more, I would say, public, and we're talking about it. We're talking about what the unit does. So taking like 25 years ago, it was really different. So really no knowledge about what the unit does. And we just wanted to go there, which was great.
Yeah.
I remember my first encounter with the unit was through the process of enlisting to the army and then being picked for different interviews. Knowing nothing about the unit, as Shai mentioned, we weren't at that time aware of what the unit does, but I was very much impressed by the people that interviewed me along the way. And I think this is something I took to my other part of my career, this way of being, telling who the unit is through people and through the encounter with different people during the process of enlisting to the army was so significant. I saw the very smart people. I saw how much they are invested in testing my capabilities, my knowledge, the way I operate in a team, et cetera, et cetera. That was very impressive, and I think I now can see how valuable it was for the unit and the recruitment process.
Yeah, and I can say I'm now a father of 2 daughters that are serving in the unit, and when they went to those initial tests, and I'm like trying to encourage them, but of course they are not going to hear their father. But coming back from those exams, they were so excited just by the possibility of joining this group of people. that it was clear that someone is doing something right, even just in those tests. So Yaron, I wanted to ask you, in Israel, the unit is almost like Ivy League in terms of how people perceive it. What kind of people does the unit is trying to attract? Is it only very tech people, or is it more complicated than that?
Basically, the secret is it's a pure meritocracy. We have mandatory service. That's the secret. We can basically take all the people in Israel, the age of 18, male and females, give them very long tests, cognitive, psychological, group tests, and select the brightest people and pay them $300 a month, which is also an advantage.
And we focus on two kinds of people. We look for some of the people are people we're looking for that already have prior knowledge in software and hardware and other things. Most of the people we bring to the unit are people who were selected because of their potential of learning extremely fast, and people who have the relevant leadership potential because they will have to manage extremely complex operational challenges in an extremely young age. The average age in the unit, it's not a secret, that's 21. So just imagine we're looking for people with tons of potential. Most of them were the #1 students in their class or high school. They joined the basic training, just like I did 26 years ago, and find out that everyone were the best in their class and their high school. And you're actually not the smartest person in the room in most cases, but that's the way we do things. It's about the potential of learning fast.
Ariel, you want to add something on that?
Yeah, I think other than that, definitely the ability to identify the potential of learning, which I think the unit developed through the years with certain support of psychologists, et cetera. It's also about values that we try to identify very early in the screening process. And because of the huge responsibility and the huge exposure to secrets and to sensitive topics that they have, we must identify or be able to select the people with the right values in terms of integrity, in terms of motivation, in terms of resiliency to some extent. And so this is also an aspect of what type of people we looked for and we're still looking for.
So maybe a good point to continue is talk a little bit about those training programs. As I said before, there are about 30 different training programs, and of course we cannot go here into the details of the technologies or whatever that they are teaching there. But to be honest, in my mind, it's probably less exciting and interesting than some of the other stuff. So some of the more cultural stuff that the people are being taught there. And Eyal, maybe you can start with picking up maybe one element of the culture, or I would say one element of the the teaching process that is part of the.
So after you understand that those guys are pretty young with no experience, the first step that there is an emphasis in those courses is to boost up the competence of the guys, so boys and girls, to make sure that they understand that they can do everything. I mean, it's the sky is the limit. And I have an interesting story regarding it because my son did one of the courses. So, and I heard it from him when he came home after a few weeks and said that after a few days in the course, they got a self-exercise that everyone has to do on their own. The exercise lasts for a few days and nights, and they have to fulfill it and to succeed in that test. And they have they started to work on the exercise, and after a few hours, he got stuck. So he doesn't know what to do. So they have a chat system, internal chat system with their mentors, with their commanders. and he asks a question regarding the exercise, and he gets an immediate answer, YWC, YWM, YWM, that's the answer.
YWM.
YWM. Okay, so he says, okay, I will continue to try, and after an hour, he's still stuck. He asks again another question and gets the same answer, YWM. So after a day, another question, the same answer. After a week, another question, the same answer. And that's how it went, you know, and they stopped, he and his friends, they stopped asking. They stopped to ask questions, they stopped to try to get some hints regarding the exercise that they have. After a few weeks, they got some courage, and they asked one of the commanders, come on, tell us what's YWC, YWM, what is it? And he said, you will manage. So for a few weeks, that was the answer that they got. And the lesson was that actually, at the end, they did manage. And you know, in regular learning systems, high schools, universities, you really, you get used to getting some hints, help, and they are, the way they are treated, they learn that everything can be done if they try hard enough. So that's one. Maybe another one, just an interesting one, is the ratio of mentoring. During the courses, there is a very low ratio of mentoring. So for each trainee, there are like around 4 to 5, or on the contrary, for 4 and 5 trainees, there is one mentor. So the ratio is very low, meaning that there is a huge investment in mentoring, which is the kind of stuff that is being done in those courses, trying to change the way they think, trying to change the way they solve problems. And the way to do it is by showing them how, by a very close mentoring. And those guys, the mentoring, they are only 3 or 4 years older than the guys that started the course, but they look up to them, and they would like to be the same when they grow up, right? 3 years. So that's...
So a can-do mentality, a lot of mentoring. There's, Ariel, also a lot of time pressure, right? I mean, they're learning in a few months what others would learn in a few years.
Exactly.
And academy, right?
Was lucky enough to be both a student, a teacher, and a commander in these courses. So I felt that pressure in different aspects of it. And definitely, we take that into the extreme. We know how capable they are. We know their resilience. We know their motivation. And so we create an atmosphere that allows them to study probably, 10, 12 hours a day, sometimes, for a period of time of 3 to 6 months. Sounds crazy when I say that now, but it happens. And actually, people are achieving a lot through this period of time. The experience of how capable they are even grows further. And another aspect of what we do is we keep a very sacred value, which is do not compare with others, focus on your own.
This is a crazy one. You have to, because this is also with my daughters, just the idea of not comparing your scores with other people, and it almost becomes like a big no-no. I mean, if you do it, tell us more about that.
It's almost a strict law in which you don't talk about your score. You don't talk about what exactly are you achieving during this process of learning. You're focused on your own achievements. You're focused on your own plan. You have the mentors guiding you through this process. You're not allowed to compare. And this is addressing mainly the fact that these young people came from an environment where they were number one, as Yaron mentioned, and it doesn't necessarily apply for this new environment, and you don't want to be managing this crisis rather than focusing on their own abilities and their own progress. Surprisingly, it works. Surprisingly, people do not compare, even though they're very competitive people. and it creates a very unique atmosphere of learning where people are actually together and alone at the same time, if it makes sense.
Yeah. And I think maybe the last part that we wanted to mention here about the uniqueness of all those programs is that people have their own progress path on their own, right? So if you are faster on whatever, you're just running fast. If you are slower in something, it's not that all the class is moving in the same speed, right?
Yeah, and that's based on the ratio of mentoring. You can't do that if you don't have this very tailored ability or the ability to tailor the training per person.
So maybe, Yaron, I wanted to ask you, and this is, of course, very exciting, but I think, people on the audience are asking themselves, how can I learn from this? What does it mean for my own business, which is, of course, a completely different setup. So, you are now, being on the other side. What elements out of this are you using, if at all, in your day-to-day job today?
So a few things. First, the importance of a training mechanism, a training factory is immense. Second, it's about the kind of talent you bring. I'm looking for people who are excited about learning new things and developing, and that's not everyone. Second, the mentorship issue is critical, and I personally believe in a mentorship that is it's based on almost radical transparency and openness. Otherwise, it's not happening. You won't be able to improve. You won't be able to learn fast. It's sometimes brutal. You sit in front of your mentor and he's saying bad things about the way you're advancing, but it's the only way to improve. So these are things I'm actually using in my day-to-day.
Okay. So again, very young organization, very young people having all this, crash courses into technology and innovation, whatever, and then they are thrown into, starting to work. And this creates a very kind of, young and I think, exciting, environment. How do you, Shai, what's your view, when you take, inexperienced people and, throw them into this kind of organization, how does it, impact the culture and what does it really mean?
I would say that you get many things. So one is part of the training, of course, is part of what they were trained to do, the can-do mentality, which is, of course, very important for the success of the unit. I would say another thing that you're getting mostly from young people that they feel that they can do anything. I would say it's like something like naive optimism. Maybe I can share one story. So there was a huge project that some part of the unit did, working on that for, let's say, a year or so with tens of people. And before the project were operationalized, we went and get approval from the head of the intelligence corps, General Yadlin, that is already supposed to come after us and talk on the stage.
Spoiler, he's going to follow us in what?
In 5 minutes.
6 minutes, okay.
So we presented again. So the presentation was done by someone very young, a 20-year-old boy, I don't know, a corporal or a sergeant. Of course, he's presenting to the general, and he's talking about the project. He's very smart, this boy, this young man. He's explaining about what we did and all the part of the project and how it will work. And then the end of the presentation, again, very good presentation. At the end of the presentation, the head of the intelligence corps asks him, what are the risks, or what's the probability that it will not work? And this, again, young person with very naive optimism, I would say, why are you asking? Again, it will work. Again, I explained it to you. Again, this is how the project works, what we did, and this is how it would work. Again, there is no risk, it will work. And the generals ask as a joke, I would say, do you know what's the difference between optimist and a pessimist? And he said, the answer is experience. So with experience, of course, comes the pessimism. But at the end of the day, I feel that it was part of the culture that was important for the unit, for the success of the unit. And when you were talking about startups and about founding companies and entrepreneurships and being part of a place that it's very hard. You need to be really, really optimistic about your success. Otherwise, you will not do that, because founding a company, it's really, really, really difficult. So this naive optimism is something that, of course, is very important. So the can-do attitude with very strong optimism and very good training, of course, creates a very, very, very interesting culture that, at the end of the day, can succeed in many places that others can't. Yeah.
Eyal, tell us a little bit about working in a flat organization. One of my first memories is, when I was a very young officer just getting in, I was sent to a discussion, and all the people around the table were like high-ranking officers, almost like you guys. And I felt almost embarrassed to talk. But when I spoke, actually people listened as if I had the ranks. So how does it work to work?
Yeah, that's interesting, because at the end, the unit is part of the IDF. It's a military unit, hierarchy, ranks, so very formal. But the unit is, there is a different culture. An example to that is that once, a few years ago, a lot of years ago, we had to send someone on a vessel to a joint operation with the Navy. And this guy should have been in the command center of the ship, of the vessel. And we got a response from the Navy that he won't be there no matter what, because he is not an officer. No way he's going to be in the command center of the ship during the operation. We said, come on, this guy is a professional, he knows what to do. We need him there. He said, no way. We went to think, what can we do? We need him. So at the end, what we did, we sent him with civilian clothes to the operation. And they didn't know that he's not an officer, and it worked. So really in the unit, nobody sees ranks or hierarchy. People are, everyone looks at their professionalism, the insights that they bring, and the ideas that always come from the bottom in the unit. So that's the way it works in the unit.
So our time is running up very fast, and there's so many more questions that I wanted to ask, but I want to maybe use the last part of the discussion to talk a little bit about leadership, right? So there's almost like a different kind of leadership in these type of organizations, because you have all those smart people. There's almost chaos, right? Because all those young people, they want to do what they want to do, and they want to always create something new, but still you want to maintain some structure. There's still some task, right? So how do you manage that? Maybe Ariel, maybe.
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the main challenges in leadership in the unit, the fact that it is not a top-down, pure management process. Definitely, we heard that. It's also not just a bottoms-up. It's kind of a mixture, and it's a fine-tuning between almost total chaos, letting people do something that you're not even aware of. I had a specific team in my unit. I knew that they were doing something almost against my exact orders. And I needed to leave that room for creativity, only know what the limits are. So it's kind of the border of chaos. And on the other side, introduce some structure to it. There is no simple answer to that other than always keeping this very sensitive ear to finding the right volume, the right fine-tune in these two tensions between structure and chaos. And I think the same applies for leading companies in the tech world, maybe outside of it, but I can talk about that. It's always the balance between chaos that allows us to respond to what's happening out there very rapidly, and structure that leaves a kind of an anchor to the vision and to where you're going.
Yeah, and I think maybe if we look at innovation, because the world is changing so fast, if your organization can really adapt and be so fast in adapting new stuff, you are winning. And with that, maybe last sentence for everyone, if you would have one tip for global organizations, what to take from 80 to 100, what would your tip be? Maybe starting with you.
Quickly, the change. The unit is always changing rapidly. That's the only chance to be relevant And that's what, if I have to choose one thing, is the ability to change fast and not to be afraid of a change.
I think for me, we talked about the can-do attitude and naive optimism, which I think is very important for startups and companies.
You said one, I'll take three, but short ones.
Sure.
It's about three things. It's about the right mission-driven talent, it's about adaptive leadership, and it's about the ability to reinvent yourself every time. Actually, every commander that joins the unit does a strategic process and reinvents the unit every 4 years. Centers are moving, people are changing, everything is moving, and it's happening all the time.
I would add to that resilience as a core value to navigate in the modern world, the VUCA world, as they call it, and embracing mistakes. And I think this is part of the culture in the unit as well. You embrace mistakes, you learn from them, you leave room for them, and this is the only way to make progress, through mistakes.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I certainly enjoyed it. I hope you did as well. And if you do not have enough of the Middle East, next coming up, perspectives on the Middle East with General Yadlin and General Ellen. Again, thank you very much, and I want to thank the organizers for inviting us. Thank you.